Glitches in reality that prove we live in a simulation, part 15. When we watch this video for the first time, everything seems normal, but we have to look closely. As you can see, the kid's arm is inside the metal handle, but then it goes right through it like it's nothing. Is it a glitch in reality, or is the kid a magician? This man was working as a delivery driver, but he had to stop his truck because he saw something really strange in the sky. There's a broom right there in the middle, levitating perfectly still. A bug in the Matrix? Or is it Harry Potter with the invisibility cloak? Can someone explain how this crashed car has a power pole going straight through it? The only explanation I can think of is that the car fell from the sky, but I'm sure that didn't happen. Someone looked out their bedroom window and saw a man eating an ice cream. But that's not the weird part. The weird part is there are two more people dressed exactly the same, doing the exact same thing. The worst ways people have lost their lives. Part 25. Adam Pai, a 26-year-old man from California. He was spending the day at the beach with his friends, and to entertain himself, he decided to dig a hole more than 3 meters deep. Suddenly, all the sand he dug out collapsed, burying him alive. Around 30 volunteers tried to pull him out in every possible way, using shovels, buckets, even their bare hands. But when they finally did, sadly, it was already too late. Simon Brown, 24 years old, was on a train trip when he noticed one of the windows was open. He decided to lean out without thinking that something could hit him in the head, and unfortunately that's exactly what happened as he was looking backward. A train was coming and he didn't notice. It hit him, and after an impact like that, sadly he didn't make it. This is how people imagined 2024 100 years ago. Part 2. 100 years ago, people thought traveling to space would be accessible to anyone. In this drawing they made, you could see a family vacationing on the moon. Sadly, we still can't do this today, but I hope we can soon because it would fulfill one of my dreams. People back then also thought that in the future there wouldn't be construction workers. According to them, the architect would control robots that would build the entire building. As crazy as it sounds, we're not that far from that today. The other day I saw them build an entire building using a 3D printer. This sadly doesn't exist, but I'd love it. They believed we'd have robots at home that would cut our hair and always leave it perfect. If something like that ever got invented, would you buy it? People who hit the lottery with their food. Part 8. This man literally hit the lottery because he was in a restaurant eating oysters and found this inside one of them. He also says he was able to sell the pearl for more than $1,000. I don't get how people get that lucky. Someone opened an avocado to make toast, and that's how tiny the pit was. And mine, every avocado I get is like this. His sister-in-law brought him this lemon. There's no way it makes sense how huge it is compared to a normal lemon. A guy ordered a medium ice cream at an ice cream shop and they gave him this. If this is the medium, I don't even want to imagine the large. The Taco Bell workers asked this guy if he wanted sauces and he said all of them. And they gave him a whole separate bag completely packed with sauces. Not so smart thieves caught on camera. A Venezuelan tried to rob a bank in Ohio, United States. The problem is he didn't know how to say "give me all the money" in English, so he had to use the translator on his phone. By the time he finished, the police had already arrived. Brazilian police arrested a famous thief who couldn't be arrested because he was under 18. They waited until his 18th birthday, and that day they went to his house with cake and stuff to celebrate his birthday. They sang to him, made him eat, and then they took him to jail. Sarah Harris, 34 years old, called the police twice complaining that she'd been sold bad illegal substances. At first, the police thought it was a joke, but after the second call, they summoned her and arrested her for admitting to illegal activity. People who lost the food lottery. A guy ordered fries with cheese, and on the menu they looked like this photo, but what he got was totally different. Fries with just a single slice of cheese on top. He bought the biggest watermelon at the fruit stand, but he was shocked when he got home. He cut it in half and saw that 90% of the watermelon was rind, and on top of that, what little there was had a ton of seeds. I think this counts as false advertising because the picture on the packaging has nothing to do with reality. This pizza box shows what's inside, but as soon as the person opened it, they realized they'd been scammed because only the part you could see from the outside had toppings, nothing else did. Someone bought a burger at a gas station, but when they got home and opened it, they realized it only had this piece of cheese. And they placed it strategically like that so it would look like it had more. People who died while taking a selfie. Part 4. Isabella Franciola, a 16-year-old Italian girl, during a school trip in the coastal city of Taranto in southeast Italy, stopped at a lookout to take pictures. To get the best shot possible, she climbed onto the railing, and shortly after she lost her balance and fell straight down from a height of 18 meters. They took her to the hospital. The doctors tried everything they could, but they couldn't save her. Li Wei, a 50-year-old Chinese man, was vacationing in the United States with a group of 11 people, and one day they went to visit the Grand Canyon. The guide gave them time to take as many photos as they wanted, but Li Wei wandered too far from the group. Without realizing it, he slowly got closer and closer to the edge until he fell. He fell 305 meters, and from a fall like that, almost nobody survives. This man adopted children every month, and what he did with them will leave you speechless. This is Mohammed Bishek, a 62-year-old Muslim immigrant living in Los Angeles. 20 years ago, he developed an unconditional love for children, and ever since then, he's adopted one every month. However, these kids barely ever left the house, which really surprised all the neighbors. And even though Mohammed had always seemed like a good person and was kind to everyone, they suspected him. They spent hours and hours watching out the window to see if they'd notice anything strange. Some of them even stayed up all night trying to figure something out. But everything seemed calm at Mohammed's house. One day, fed up with the situation, the neighbors decided to confront him and asked why he adopted so many kids, and his answer left everyone in shock. If there's a lot of support, I'll upload part 2 right away. This man adopted children every month, and what he did with them will leave you speechless. Part 2. This 62-year-old man named Mohammed had been adopting a child almost every month for 20 years. His neighbors found this behavior strange, and after spying on him for a long time, they decided to confront him. They asked why he adopted so many kids and what he did with them, and his answer left everyone speechless. Mohammed adopted children with terminal illnesses and took care of them. Dozens of kids with complex health conditions have passed through his home. Kids who, if it weren't for Mohammed, would spend the rest of their lives in a hospital. Right now, he's taking full-time care of a girl who has a rare brain disease that leaves her bedridden, and she's also blind and deaf. Doctors gave her a life expectancy of 2 years, but with Mohammed, she's been living for more than 6. Images that confuse the entire world, part 10. It's always good to carry a spare pair of legs in your bag when you go out. You never know when you'll need them. I don't know where this place is that teaches you how to float, but I definitely love to go take some classes. No, this guy doesn't skip arm day at the gym. His arms are actually behind him, and in the photo, they line up with his friend's arm, who's farther away. At first, I thought it was a man wearing heels, which honestly could totally be true, but then I realized what was going on. Comment if you thought that too. At first glance, it looks like this bike is missing a wheel, right? But if you look closely, it's actually covered in mud and it blends in perfectly. Am I the only one who, the first time they saw this, thought someone was about to do a dive? These kinds of images blow my mind. Which of these two buildings do you think is closer in the photo? The worst ways people have lost their lives. Part 26. Tyler Turner, 18 years old, got on a small plane and said goodbye to his mom, saying, "Hi dear mother, I'm going to go skydiving." He was filming a video about what it's like to skydive for the first time, so he did it with an instructor. But sadly, the parachute never opened, and both Tyler and the instructor died on impact. Shortly after, Tyler's family investigated and discovered that the instructor who jumped with him didn't have any kind of license, and the company had to pay the family $34 million in compensation. Corey Terry, 33 years old, after playing basketball with his friends for 45 minutes, decided to stop to drink a Red Bull. Suddenly, he collapsed and died from a heart attack. His family sued Red Bull because they think it was their fault. What do you think? People with the best luck in the world. Part 16. When this man took the wheel off his car, the jack collapsed and the whole weight of the car fell onto the wheel. If you look closely, when he instinctively puts his hand in, his fingers are just millimeters away from being completely crushed. That's why you have to use proper protection when you use tools, like an angle grinder can easily cut through skin and bone. And luckily this man had a face shield, otherwise it would have sliced his whole face open. When they cut this tree down, they didn't put any warning on the street. If the cyclist had passed 1 second later, it would have been a tragedy. These two guys used to jump off the bridge into the river, but they never noticed the boat was coming. Thank goodness nobody got hurt. Animals, heroes that saved people's lives. This girl wanted to check what her fish was doing. We live in a simulation. Part 16. A man driving his car stopped suddenly because he saw a bush on fire and was going to put it out. But something really strange happened. The bush only looked like it was on fire when he looked at it through the car window. When he stepped outside, it looked normal. Can you find any explanation for what happened? A girl was calmly filming her chickens when suddenly something really weird happened. Out of nowhere, the chickens went completely still. They didn't move a single feather, like they were frozen. And this went on for several minutes, which scared the girl. Do you know why this happened? A man had to record what was happening because he couldn't believe it. His mirror reflected everything normally, except the shoe, which was reflected backwards. A glitch in reality or just an edited video? The father removed the mirror from the room and discovered his late daughter's secret. Athena Orchard was a cheerful, fun English girl. She loved sports and especially boxing, and she also helped her parents take care of her 6 sisters and 3 brothers. One day she found a lump on her head. At first she didn't think much of it, but not long after, while she was in the kitchen, she fainted. Doctors discovered she had a bone disease and needed surgery right away. Because of the treatment, she lost all her hair, and her energy, which seemed endless, slowly started to fade. She fought as hard as she could, but sadly she passed away. Sometime later, while her father was packing up everything in her room, he discovered something behind the mirror that left him shocked for hours. Hit the little arrow and comment if you want to know what happened next. The father removed the mirror from her room and discovered his late daughter's secret. Part 2. Athena Orchard's happy, cheerful life did a complete 180 when she found out she had a serious bone disease. After fighting as hard as she could, sadly she passed away. Sometime later, while her father was packing up her room, he discovered something behind the mirror that left him shocked for hours. He discovered that the entire back of the mirror was covered in writing from top to bottom. There were more than 3,000 words. It was a message his late daughter had left. The father said he couldn't believe it. It felt like a devastating blow. He started reading what was written, but he had to stop quickly because it broke his heart even more. She had written really deep and beautiful messages for all of her family members. You can find the full translated text on Google. The worst ways people have lost their lives. Part 27. Rosa Yalagona, 52 years old, was spending the day at Six Flags with her daughter. And everything was fine until they got on the roller coaster called Texas Giant. The operator, who was checking all the safety restraints, didn't notice that the women's weren't properly secured. And at the highest drop of the ride, the restraint failed and she was thrown out to a height of 25 meters. The worst part is her daughter was right next to her and saw absolutely everything. A group of 14 tourists visiting China decided to go on the longest water slide in the world. The ride was super exciting and fun for everyone. But out of nowhere, all 14 tourists went flying. 2 of them died and the other 12 were seriously injured. If you see this, you'll regain your faith in humanity. Part 17. 2 Norwegian tourists saw that a sheep had fallen into the rough sea, so they decided to risk their lives to rescue it. With the strong waves and the rocks, it would have been impossible to survive without these people's help. A grandson went to visit his sick grandma and found his grandpa dancing for her to entertain her and make her laugh. After a tough year of online classes, this teacher's students decided to surprise him to show him how much they admired him. And his reaction is priceless. This man, named John Anger, lived with his dog for more than 19 years, and the German Shepherd, due to old age, suffered from arthritis and blindness. So every night, John would take him to a river in Wisconsin where he'd spend the whole night with him because the water eased his pain and helped him sleep better. These are the worst inventions in the world. Even if you have the latest iPhone or the most expensive Samsung, I promise it doesn't have something this phone does. Let me introduce you to this Chinese phone called the Rongsong 758, and yes, you're seeing it right, it comes with a built-in shaver. I don't know when anyone thought it was a good idea to add that, and as you can imagine, it was a total failure. This thing the dog is wearing is called No More Woof, and it costs more than $1,200. It's a device that translates your dog's barks so you can understand them, but it has one problem: it doesn't work. Poor people who paid $1,000 for this, and it turned out to be a scam. And we're continuing with absurd inventions for your pet. Meet the Pet Peter. And as it says on the box, it's for petting your dog so you never have to touch it again. People having a worse day than you. A girl after a long day at work lay down in her bed, but she noticed some weird dots on the ceiling. When she looked closely, she realized what it actually was. This guy woke up half asleep, and instead of putting the mug in the coffee maker, he put it in the toaster, and on top of that, he didn't have time to make another one. This cyclist lost his balance and fell off to the side of the road. The doctor's faces say it all. They don't even know where to start. When this guy got back home, he found the neighbor's dog eating the food the delivery driver had left. And speaking of dogs, a couple wasn't home when the delivery driver dropped off a package with really expensive clothes. The problem is, since nobody answered, the driver tossed the package into the backyard. But their 2 dogs were there, and they didn't leave anything unshredded. The manager of this restaurant kicked out an elderly woman who looked homeless, not knowing who she really was. On a freezing cold day, an elderly woman walked into a very fancy restaurant. Her clothes were torn, she was a bit dirty, and she was shivering badly. The restaurant was known for its high prestige, and as soon as she walked in, everyone started whispering. That's when the manager approached her, and before she could even speak, he grabbed her arm with disgust and dragged her to the door. He told her to check the dumpster out back. Maybe she'd find some food there. The woman burst into tears and went to the back of the restaurant. That's when Antonio came out, a waiter there who was only 18 years old. He studied during the day and worked at night to help at home, since he lived alone with his sister and his mom. When Antonio found out who the woman really was, he was speechless. I don't have time for more, like if you want part 2. The manager of the restaurant kicked out this elderly woman who looked homeless, not knowing who she really was. Part 2. Antonio, seeing how disrespectfully they treated the elderly woman, quickly went up to her and gave her every tip he'd made that day. "This is all I have right now. I hope it helps," Antonio told her. She left with the money, but a few days later, she came back to the restaurant. She walked in wearing a glamorous dress and jewelry. Clearly, she wasn't homeless. When the manager came over to serve her, he realized she was the woman he'd kicked out days earlier and apologized for the misunderstanding. But the woman looked at him and said, I accept your apology, but I don't want heartless managers in restaurant chains. You're fired. Meanwhile, Antonio, the boy, did the kindest thing I've seen in my entire life, so now he has the manager position. Antonio happily accepted the job, and after being trained, he became the restaurant's manager. Acts of kindness that will make you cry. A family saw a dog on the street that looked like it was having a really rough time. Not only was it really stressed, it also seemed pretty sick, so they decided to help it and took it home. And this is what it looks like today. It looks like a completely different dog. Some guys wanted to see what a woman who lives on the street would do if they dropped their wallet in front of her. She immediately reacted to return it, and as soon as she saw them again, she gave it back without even checking what was inside. There are people who don't do this even with a full belly. Imagine if they were starving. Obviously, for that gesture, the guys gave her a nice gift. This kid has humble parents and has never been able to celebrate his birthday, so he wasn't expecting anything different this year. But his boss sent him to buy a soda, and when he came back, they were waiting for him with this. His face says it all.